In 1807, in the coastal town of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, merchant captain's wife Sarah Blackwood recorded in her personal diary an observation that would haunt medical science for centuries. Her husband of 12 years had returned from a voyage to the West Indies with eyes that were not his own. What investigators discovered when they examined Sarah's detailed journals decades later would challenge everything ophthalmology understood about vision and identity, and leave experts questioning whether human consciousness could be transferred through ocular transplantation. This investigation began on April 23, 1807, when Captain Thomas Blackwood returned to Portsmouth after an 8-month trading voyage. According to records discovered only in 1951 in the basement archives of the New Hampshire Historical Society, Sarah's meticulous documentation of her husband's altered appearance would reveal surgical procedures so disturbing that federal medical authorities classified the findings at levels that remain restricted to this day. The Blackwood family had been established in Portsmouth since 1789, with Thomas operating a profitable trading route between New England and Caribbean ports. According to shipping manifests and customs records, Captain Blackwood commanded the merchant vessel Providence, making regular voyages that typically lasted 6 to 9 months. Sarah had maintained their household during his absences, raising their 3 children and managing the family's business affairs in Portsmouth. According to Sarah Blackwood's diary, preserved in the Portsmouth Athenaeum archives, Thomas's return on April 23 appeared normal at first observation. Sarah's detailed account of that evening would later provide investigators with crucial evidence of what medical experts would classify as the first documented case of complete bilateral ocular transplantation with apparent consciousness transfer. Sarah's diary entry for April 23, 1807, reads, "Thomas arrived home this evening, appearing in good health and spirits. He embraced me and the children with appropriate affection and spoke sensibly of his voyage experiences. Yet within moments of our reunion, I perceived something profoundly wrong. His eyes, those familiar brown eyes I've gazed into for 12 years of marriage, have been replaced. The eyes that now look from Thomas's face are blue-grey, lighter in colour and different in shape. Most disturbing is what I see within them, not my husband's soul, but the consciousness of someone else looking out from his familiar features." What made Sarah's notation significant was her systematic documentation of behavioural characteristics that suggested Thomas had returned not merely with transplanted eyes, but with aspects of another person's consciousness. According to her detailed observations, Thomas speaks with his accustomed voice and recalls our shared history with apparent accuracy. Yet there are subtle wrongnesses throughout his speech and manner. He uses phrases he never employed before. He demonstrates knowledge of places he never visited. Most troubling is his gaze. When he looks at familiar objects or beloved faces, I perceive no recognition in those foreign eyes. Only careful performance of expected responses, but there was something about that April evening that Sarah found increasingly disturbing as she observed her husband. According to her confidential entries, recorded in a separate journal discovered decades later, the eyes themselves appear wrong beyond mere colour difference. They move with slightly different timing than Thomas's eyes moved before, tracking objects with patterns that seem foreign to his usual visual habits. Most unsettling is what occurs when he sleeps. His closed eyelids demonstrate tremors and movements suggesting the eyes beneath are active, seeing things that are not present in our darkened bedroom. The phenomenon continued over subsequent days, with Sarah documenting progressive evidence that Thomas had returned not fully himself. Her diary entries from late April through May 1807 record increasing behavioural divergences that suggested someone else's memories and personality were manifesting through the transplanted eyes. Sarah's diary entry from May 3, 1807, documents. "This morning, Thomas spoke in his sleep using words in Spanish, a language he never studied. When I woke him, he described dreaming of a plantation house he had never visited, seeing through eyes that look down from greater height than Thomas possesses, surveying fields worked by enslaved labourers. Most disturbing was his emotional response. He wept for circumstances he described as my sins, my terrible sins. though he could not explain what sins he meant upon full waking. The investigation into Sarah's diary entries began in 1951, when Dr. Margaret Foster of Johns Hopkins Hospital was conducting research into historical ophthalmological procedures. According to her case files, preserved in the Hopkins archives, Dr. Foster's analysis of Sarah Blackwood's journals revealed surgical techniques that should not have been medically possible in 1807. Dr. Foster's initial examination of the Blackwood journals was part of her comprehensive study documenting the evolution of eye surgery. According to her research notes, Sarah Blackwood's diary initially appeared to document typical 19th century superstition regarding physical changes in a returning sailor. However, systematic analysis of her detailed descriptions revealed evidence of actual bilateral ocular transplantation performed with surgical precision that exceeded medical capabilities of the era by more than a century. What Dr. Foster discovered during her analysis defied everything medical history documented about ophthalmological surgery in the early 1800s. According to her confidential report to the hospital director, dated June 15, 1951, analysis of Sarah Blackwood's documentation reveals that Captain Thomas Blackwood underwent complete bilateral eye transplantation sometime during his 1806 to 1807 voyage. The surgical technique required to achieve successful transplantation would necessitate skills in microsurgery, nerve grafting, and immunosuppression that were not developed until the mid-20th century. Most disturbing is evidence suggesting the procedure successfully transferred not only optical function, but aspects of donor consciousness. The breakthrough in Dr. Foster's analysis came when she obtained access to ship's logs from the Providence's 1806 to 1807 voyage, preserved in maritime archives. According to the logs, Captain Blackwood had made an unscheduled stop at a remote Caribbean island in November 1806, remaining there for 6 weeks, far longer than required for standard ship repairs or cargo operations. Dr. Foster's detailed analysis revealed that the ship's log contained cryptic entries during the Caribbean stop, suggesting Blackwood had been incapacitated by illness or injury. According to the ship's first mate, Samuel Morrison, Captain suffered grievous injury to both eyes, November 7, 1806, while ashore investigating reports of hermit physician residing in island interior. Captain returned to ship with eyes bandaged, in care of said physician, who remained aboard to provide treatment. Captain's recovery proceeded under physician's care through December 1806, at which time bandages were removed, revealing successful healing but altered appearance of optical organs. Even more disturbing was Dr. Foster's discovery that Morrison's log entries contained descriptions of the hermit physician that suggested medical capabilities far exceeding typical Caribbean colonial medicine. According to Morrison's account, the physician, who identified himself as Dr. Emmanuel Mendez, demonstrated surgical knowledge of extraordinary sophistication. He maintained well-equipped medical chambers in island interior cave system, with instruments and preserved specimens suggesting extensive research into human transplantation procedures. Dr. Foster's investigation revealed that Dr. Mendez had been conducting experimental transplantation surgery on the remote Caribbean islands since the 1790s, developing techniques that would not be formally discovered for more than 150 years. According to documents she discovered in Spanish colonial medical archives, Mendez had been expelled from medical practice in Spain in 1789 for conducting experiments in consciousness transfer through biological material transplantation. But Dr. Mendez's research documentation revealed even more troubling implications about his transplantation objectives. According to his confidential research notes, discovered in archives at the University of Havana, successful ocular transplantation requires not merely transfer of optical organs, but integration of donor neural tissues that carry consciousness impressions. The eyes serve as channels through which donor consciousness can manifest in recipient bodies, allowing preservation of identity beyond physical death through systematic transplantation of consciousness-bearing tissues. The investigation deepened when Dr. Foster examined the identity of Captain Blackwood's eye donor. According to ship's logs and Caribbean colonial records, Dr. Mendez had been treating a Spanish plantation owner named Don Ricardo Velasquez, who had died on the same island in early November 1806, precisely when Captain Blackwood sustained his eye injury. Dr. Foster's analysis of death records revealed that Don Ricardo had been a wealthy sugar plantation owner, whose death was attributed to tropical fever. However, medical examination records discovered in Spanish archives documented that his body had been found with both eyes surgically removed, with precision that exceeded post-mortem damage. According to the examining physician's report, Don Ricardo Velasquez died November 6, 1806, from fever. However, post-mortem examination reveals surgical extraction of both optical organs performed with extraordinary care shortly after death. The precision of extraction and preservation suggests organs were harvested for transplantation purposes by someone possessing advanced surgical knowledge. But the records revealed that Don Ricardo had left behind a reputation that explained Sarah's disturbing observations about Thomas's altered behavior. According to testimony compiled during Spanish colonial investigations, Don Ricardo Velasquez maintained brutal sugar operations, utilizing enslaved labor under conditions of extraordinary cruelty. Multiple witnesses documented his personal participation in torture and execution of workers who failed to meet production quotas. Most disturbing were reports that he took perverse pleasure in watching suffering, describing it as his optical sustenance. Dr. Foster's investigation into Don Ricardo's consciousness transfer led her to examine Sarah Blackwood's subsequent diary entries documenting Thomas's progressive personality changes. According to journals spanning 1807 through 1815, Thomas demonstrated increasing manifestation of behavior patterns, memories, and personality traits that appeared to originate from his eye donor. Sarah's diary entries from summer 1807 document disturbing behavioral evolution. Thomas has begun speaking Spanish with fluency he never possessed before. He corrects my pronunciation of Spanish words I learned from books, insisting I'm saying them incorrectly, then demonstrating proper pronunciation with accent suggesting native fluency. When I question how he acquired this knowledge, he becomes confused and agitated, insisting he does not speak Spanish, yet he continues doing so without apparent awareness. The diary revealed that Thomas began experiencing vivid memories of events he never witnessed, particularly scenes involving Caribbean plantation operations and the exploitation of enslaved laborers. According to Sarah's documentation, Thomas wakes screaming from nightmares in which he sees through eyes that look down at suffering he is causing but cannot stop. He describes commanding punishments, witnessing deaths, feeling pleasure and horror simultaneously. Most disturbing is his claim that these are not dreams, but memories belonging to the eyes, that the eyes remember their original owner's experiences and force Thomas to witness them. But Sarah's journals revealed even more troubling implications about the consciousness transfer. According to entries from late 1807, I no longer know if I am living with my husband or with the man whose eyes he wears. Thomas's personality has begun fragmenting. Sometimes he speaks and acts as the man I married, but increasingly he manifests characteristics of someone else. He demonstrates knowledge of plantation management, speaks with aristocratic Spanish affect, and exhibits casual cruelty towards servants that was never part of his character. The investigation took a more alarming turn when Dr. Foster discovered that Sarah had sought medical consultation regarding Thomas's condition. According to records from Portsmouth physician Dr. Elias Whitmore, Sarah brought her husband for examination in September 1807, describing symptoms that the physician found deeply disturbing. Dr. Whitmore's case notes document, Mrs. Blackwood reports that her husband demonstrates progressive personality displacement, suggesting that consciousness of eye donor may be systematically overtaking recipient personality. Captain Blackwood himself reports experiencing memories belonging to another man, seeing visions of places he never visited, and feeling impulses toward cruelty that are foreign to his nature. Most troubling is his description of seeing two simultaneous realities, his familiar world overlaid with visions of Caribbean plantation scenes, visible only through his transplanted eyes. But Dr. Whitmore's medical documentation revealed that he recognized the symptoms from classified medical reports he had reviewed during his training. According to his confidential case notes, Captain Blackwood's condition is consistent with reports of consciousness transfer through tissue transplantation documented in European medical research. I must contact federal medical authorities regarding this case, as it represents evidence of experimental procedures that pose significant risks to identity and consciousness integrity. Dr. Foster's investigation revealed that Dr. Whitmore had indeed contacted federal authorities, triggering a covert investigation of Captain Blackwood that continued until his death. According to classified documents discovered in Treasury Department archives, federal agents had been monitoring the Blackwood household since October 1807, documenting Thomas's progressive personality displacement as part of systematic research into consciousness transfer capabilities. According to a classified memorandum from the Treasury Department's Medical Intelligence Division, dated November 3, 1807, Captain Thomas Blackwood represents confirmed case of consciousness transfer through ocular transplantation. Subject demonstrates progressive manifestation of donor personality traits, memories, and behavioral patterns suggesting that human identity can be preserved and transferred through transplanted neural tissues. Recommend continued surveillance to document complete displacement timeline and ultimate personality integration outcomes. The federal surveillance documented that Thomas Blackwood experienced complete personality displacement over approximately 18 months following his transplantation, according to classified observation reports. By December 1808, Captain Blackwood demonstrated predominant manifestation of donor consciousness, with original personality appearing only in brief intervals of increasing rarity. Subject now speaks primarily Spanish, demonstrates knowledge consistent with Caribbean plantation management, and exhibits personality characteristics matching historical documentation of Don Ricardo Velázquez. But the federal research revealed disturbing evidence that the consciousness displacement was not merely psychological, but involved actual neural restructuring. According to classified medical examinations, physical examination reveals that Captain Blackwood's brain has begun demonstrating structural modifications consistent with neural pathway reorganization. The transplanted eyes appear to be systematically rewiring recipient neural tissue to match donor consciousness patterns, effectively rewriting the recipient's brain to reproduce the donor's neural structure. The investigation reached its most disturbing phase when Dr. Foster discovered that Thomas Blackwood had not been the only subject of Dr. Mendez's consciousness transfer experiments. According to Caribbean colonial records, at least 37 individuals underwent ocular transplantation between 1795 and 1810 at Dr. Mendez's island facility, each receiving eyes from recently deceased donors whose consciousness gradually overtook recipient personalities. De Foster's analysis revealed that Dr. Mendez had been systematically studying consciousness transfer as a method for achieving biological immortality, allowing wealthy individuals to survive death by transplanting consciousness-bearing tissues into living recipients. According to his research notes, successful consciousness preservation requires transplantation of neural tissues that carry identity information. The eyes, with their direct neural connections to brain structures, provide optimal channels for consciousness transfer. Progressive integration of transplanted eye tissues with recipient neural systems allows complete personality displacement, effectively moving donor consciousness into recipient body. But Dr. Mendez's research revealed that the consciousness transfer had disturbing permanent effects. According to his documentation, complete consciousness displacement typically achieves stability within 18 to 24 months of transplantation, at which point recipient original personality has been entirely overwritten by donor consciousness. The process is irreversible. The recipient's original identity is permanently erased, replaced by donor personality operating through recipient body. The investigation took its final alarming turn when Dr. Chuck Foster discovered what happened to Thomas Blackwood after his complete personality displacement. According to Sarah's final diary entries and Portsmouth death records, Thomas died in 1815 under circumstances suggesting he had fully assumed Don Ricardo Velázquez's identity. Sarah's diary entry from March 1815, one of her last before she stopped maintaining the journal, documents: "The man who lives in my house is no longer Thomas. He has become Don Ricardo completely. speaking only Spanish, demanding to be addressed by that name, describing in detail the plantation he claims to own in the Caribbean, despite having never visited it as Thomas. Most disturbing is his treatment of our servants, whom he now regards as slaves to be commanded, with the casual cruelty that was Don Ricardo's trademark. I am living with the ghost of a dead Spanish plantation owner who has consumed my husband's identity and wears his body like an ill-fitting garment. Death records indicate Thomas Blackwood died in April 1815 from what the death certificate described as fever and madness. However, Dr. Foster's investigation revealed that shortly before his death, Thomas had attempted to travel to the Caribbean, insisting he needed to return to his plantation. According to witness testimony, Captain Blackwood had become convinced he was Don Ricardo Velasquez returned from death, trapped in another man's body but determined to reclaim his former life. His final ravings described watching his own death through borrowed eyes, then waking in a strange body to find his consciousness trapped in a New England merchant captain. Dr. Foster's investigation revealed that similar outcomes had been documented for most of Dr. Mendez's transplant subjects. According to Caribbean medical records, recipients of consciousness-bearing eye transplants demonstrated progressive personality displacement, culminating in complete identity transfer, effectively killing the original recipient personality while preserving the donor consciousness in a new body. But what Dr. Foster found most disturbing was evidence that Dr. Mendez had continued his consciousness transfer research well into the 19th century, training successors who carried the techniques forward into modern medical practice. According to documents discovered in ophthalmological research archives, advanced eye transplantation procedures incorporating consciousness transfer principles had been secretly developed by military medical programs since the 1890s. According to classified research proposals discovered in War Department archives, ocular transplantation with neural consciousness transfer provides unprecedented capabilities for intelligence operations. Operatives can achieve physical transformation through transplantation of complete facial features, including eyes from individuals whose identities they must assume. Most significant is the apparent transfer of donors' memories and personality traits, which could provide authentic behavioral characteristics that conventional training cannot replicate. Dr. Foster's investigation revealed that federal agencies had been systematically utilizing consciousness transfer through ocular transplantation since World War I, creating intelligence operatives who literally became the individuals they replaced through biological identity displacement. According to classified operational reports, eye transplantation programs have successfully created deep cover operatives who possess not only physical appearance, but actual memories and personality traits of target individuals, providing perfect cover that cannot be penetrated by conventional counterintelligence methods. The investigation reached its most disturbing conclusion when De Foster discovered that her research had attracted attention from federal agencies responsible for maintaining security around consciousness transfer programs. According to documents she obtained, her investigation had been monitored since she began analyzing Sarah Blackwood's diaries. According to a classified memorandum from the Central Intelligence Agency, dated September 8, 1951, Dr. Margaret Foster's investigation into historical consciousness transfer has identified classified programs that require immediate intervention, recommend termination of her research access, and implementation of standard security protocols to prevent disclosure of ocular transplantation operations. Dr. Foster's investigation was officially terminated in November 1951, when she received orders from hospital administration to close her research and transfer all materials to federal authorities. According to her final report, investigation into historical ophthalmological procedures has revealed evidence of ongoing federal programs that exceed hospital research jurisdiction. All materials have been transferred to appropriate agencies. However, Dr. Foster's private papers, discovered after her death in 1987, reveal that she continued investigating consciousness transfer unofficially for the remainder of her career. According to her notes, she documented at least 400 individuals who demonstrated behavioral characteristics consistent with consciousness displacement through ocular transplantation. Dr. Foster's continued research revealed that consciousness transfer through eye transplantation had expanded throughout American intelligence and military establishments, creating what she described as displaced identity networks, populations of individuals whose original consciousness had been systematically erased and replaced through biological neural integration with transplanted eye tissues carrying donor consciousness. Most disturbing was Dr. Foster's discovery that consciousness transfer appeared to be occurring in civilian populations through what she described as voluntary identity replacement. Individuals seeking to escape their lives through consciousness displacement into bodies with transplanted eyes carrying desired personality traits. According to her private notes, the expansion of consciousness transfer beyond intelligence operations suggests that significant numbers of individuals may be seeking biological personality replacement through ocular transplantation that erases their original identity in favor of donor consciousness. Dr. Foster's final assessment, found in her private papers, provided a warning that remains chillingly relevant. Sarah Blackwood's 1807 diary documents evidence that human consciousness can be physically transferred between bodies through transplanted neural tissues, with donor personality systematically erasing recipient identity. What began as experimental surgery has evolved into systematic consciousness replacement that may have displaced thousands of original human identities with donor personalities preserved through biological transfer. The Blackwood family journals remain in federal archives, classified at levels that prevent public access. According to sources within federal agencies, the journals continue to provide researchers with documentation of consciousness transfer principles that have applications for modern intelligence operations. Current federal programs utilizing consciousness transfer continue to build upon techniques pioneered by Dr. Mendez and refined through centuries of classified research. According to confidential sources, contemporary intelligence operations utilize advanced transplantation procedures that can transfer complete identity through ocular and neural tissue integration, creating operatives who are not merely disguised, but have literally become the individuals they replace. The mystery of consciousness transfer through eye transplantation remains classified more than 2 centuries after Thomas Blackwood returned home with someone else's eyes. Despite decades of investigation, federal authorities continue to restrict access to information about programs that may be systematically displacing human identities through biological consciousness transfer. According to current intelligence assessments, thousands of individuals may be living with transplanted eyes that carry donor consciousness, gradually erasing their original personalities. The person looking through familiar eyes may not be the person who was born in that body. The gaze may be borrowed, the consciousness transferred, the original identity slowly dying as someone else's memories and personality consume them from within. If someone you love returns with different eyes, watch for the changes. Watch for foreign memories. Watch for personality traits that don't belong. Watch for the moment when you realize that the person you knew has been erased, replaced by someone else who looks through borrowed eyes and wears a borrowed face, while the original consciousness screams silently from somewhere deep inside, trapped and fading as the transplanted eyes complete their terrible work of replacing one human soul with another.